Making a textured silver ring for week 2 of the diploma. I calculated the length of silver needed and cut it roughly to size. I hadn't used this hammer texture before, but I quickly fell in love with it and it's now one of my absolute favourites. It sounds good when sped up. The texturing stretches the metal, so I needed to measure it again precisely this time. And then I used my miter jig, which is one of the hardest working tools in my workshop, to get a perfectly straight edge on each end. I then had to anneal it before shaping. I like to use a Sharpie for this because the mark disappears when it reaches the right temperature. I then popped it into the pickle to get it nice and clean and started to shape it into a ring. I use ring forming pliers to line up the ends ready for soldering and hold it up to the light to check that seam is flush. When I'm soldering ring bands, I like to pop the solder underneath the band to make sure it's held in place, and then I had to flip this one over to make sure the solder flowed all the way along the seam. I then reshaped the ring using a mandrel and a rawhide hammer to preserve the texture and make sure it didn't end up getting stretched, and then worked to tidy up the join. I did go over the solder join itself with a metal texturing hammer to blend it in, but I forgot to film that part. The final stage involved giving it a good sanding, and then I applied a satin finish. I really love this texture and I think you can see why it's one of my favourites, and the fit was absolutely perfect, so I will be keeping this one.